in Hyderabad 2005, train more than 2,000 students in software in India and more than 150 professionals in USA. Chief architect of facial recognition, which won the top 10 innovation of India in 2013, on the best research paper at Asian Institute of Technology on digital transformation in 2019. Best paper in Malaysian Institute of Technology for the permissible blockchain in 2019. Published 3 poetry books, Being Alive, Being Mom, and Be Mine, and the 4th book, Heart for Rent, issue in Q4 2020. Certified in Master Data Management and the Data Architect for Villanova University in 2014. Blockchain certified from MIT. Writer, blogger, filmmaker, volunteers in Hindu temple at Allantana, Raksa, and various other US organizations. Won the Best Medical Excellence Award from TANA in 2019. Along with this nominee, Sri Sakshi Award, Women Entrepreneur by Intel, Most Inspiring Woman by Gates, and Best Motivating Woman by ATA, to name few entrepreneur venture. In 1997, Institute of Software Science. In 2013, Big Data Venture. In 2014, 11 Informatics. In 2016, Hamsa Writing. In 2017, Hamsa Production. In 2018, Hamsa Organics. So I request to Madam to start her lectures. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you for the wonderful opportunity, KRS sir, and all the distinguished professors and organizers of Mizoram University. And here I start. Can I start my screen? Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, today I'm going to share my thoughts, rather some of my experiences in digital transformation, and also briefly discuss about the future of AI in aviation industry. This topic has different mottos when I picked this topic. One, everywhere that we see is more of digital transformation. It became a more buzzword in the corporate sector, in academics, and everywhere that you talk of. And AI is another most important technology that's very widely talked. And there are many use cases, and it is still evolving technology, I would say. There are some fears about AI. So that's the reason I picked AI. And aviation industry is the topic of the day because of post-COVID situation. 90% of the revenues have been, the industry has lost 90% of the revenues. So combining these things, how we can actually use AI and take the concepts of digital transformation and apply to the aviation industry. I'm going to discuss pre-COVID days and post-COVID days, and I'm going to leave the concept of COVID because this discussion is more about how we are going to transform a industry and how we are going to apply the AI, and more specifically with the aviation industry and the airline sector. The agenda today is to talk about digital transformation. And when we talk about digital transformation, the most popular buzzword that we hear is digital disruption. So we also need to get ourselves a little bit exposed to what digital disruption is, and then we will go into AI and case studies. We can briefly talk about the future of AI. After that, if the participants have any questions and answers, I would be more than willing to answer them. Digital transformation in the current situation. Digital transformation is, though it is very popularly used, we need to understand what is a business transformation or digital transformation. What does it focus? It focuses on few things. It focuses on people, it focuses on processes, it focuses on data and cloud. So these are the four things that absolutely must to understand what the digital transformation means. It focuses on people and process. Let's understand that. Previously, let's take an example of academics. So all the faculties used to go and write on the board, and students used to attend the class. That's no norm as of today. It has become digital classroom. All the sessions have become online, and all the content the faculty used to give as a mode of lecture has become an online content. That's one process that we are talking about, the people who have adopted to the newer methods of conveying the old, or like carrying out the old business in the similar way. And we are also talking about the process change. So whatever that we were doing earlier has been digitalized. So this is one form of digital transformation. Before we actually convert anything, so we need to understand the people challenges, we need to understand the process challenges, and we have to understand what technology and tools are most suitable for this. If you see in my picture, it started with a larva and it becomes a butterfly, and eventually it becomes a digitalized butterfly. So there are several stages in this. So first we need to understand what are the challenges. So what are the things that we can automate, and what are the things that we can decentralize? What is the flat and faster ways of doing the focused delivery? When we talk about the digital transformation, it is not just a one step process, but it is a multi-step process. If you see, sorry, if you see, first we need to have a business as usual. So because we are going into the digital transformation of the industry or the sector, even as a matter of aviation sector or mechanical manufacturing sector or academics, we cannot disturb the business as usual. So before we aim for a bigger things, we have to first understand what are the basic things that we can continue to do, and we should continue to do in the even though we are in the process of digital transformation. And then we have to come up with the formalizing the strategy, and then we have to be convert, and then we have to innovate and transform. So in the process of this, the industry study says there were $900 billion amount has been wasted, or like 70% of the investment that has went waste in digital transformation. Why? Is it the technology goal or is it the business goal? So often people get carried away by the technology goals, but no technology goal should exist without the business goal. First thing what we need to do is, what is the business case that we are trying to accomplish, and how the technology tools and processes need to be adopted to that. If we don't understand this, then we cannot accomplish the digital transformation. In this session, I'm not going to give you a very bookish definition of what digital transformation is, because I understand my audience are the professors or the engineering students. They can very well Google what that is. So here we need to understand the things that are not actually being discussed very openly. So every organization have their business goals, and they have the technology goals. Lot of times this technology goal and business goals are not very properly aligned. That's the problem, not only in aviation sector. It is the problem that exists in every sector. That was the reason why digital transformation projects are failing across the different sectors. So the five best things that we need to do is figure out what exactly we need to do, and leverage the people that are internal. I mean, like, by bringing the external people, we cannot accomplish the business goals, or we cannot design a proper application. and recognize the fear. Like, when you are talking about the digital transformation, the biggest thing is the people. Like, they fear that they fear that they are losing their jobs, they fear that everything is automated, and they have to unlearn a lot of things that they have been planning to do, and they have to relearn it. And bringing the startup mindset are the five best lessons that we have to understand before we dwell more further into the digital transformation. So, as we discussed, there are five parts to digital transformation. The people, everybody who is working in that organization have to unlearn and relearn. This is not a one-time process. This becomes a continuous process. So, let's say, for example, if I apply the principles of this one to the people from aviation sector, previously all the flight attendants, they used to come close to you, and they have to take your the barcode, they scan it, they do it. Now it's not the new norm. They have to, there are voice enabled systems, there are facial recognition systems, so they all need to understand how they have to cater to the new things. So now people are under fear, the travelers are under fear, the flight attendants are under fear, the entire the team, the aviation team who is actually forefront, and the frontline people, they are also in fear with the situation. So how we can overcome that? Well, they have to be a new process. We will talk about the new process in a second. And data. The more you become digital, the more data that we are creating. The often challenge becomes like, how are we going to track the data? How are we going to utilize the data? How are we going to analyze the data? And how do we present the data? This is the most important thing. Previously, you can have, like, a small database application, and the data used to be captured in the front, either a desktop system or a mobile system, and you capture the data, it goes to the database. Now it's not the same. It is not exactly the same. Yes, the process to the broader sense looks the same. Yes, we still have the applications, we still have the mobile apps, we still have the desktop apps, and we create the data through this, we interact to the applications to this, and we capture the data into the database at some point. But there was a lot of transformations that were happening before the data is being captured and stored, or and the way we are storing the data has changed. Previously we used to have, like, big physical servers, like, we have bare metal servers. Now that's not the new norm, we don't need them. So a lot of data has been already, which is sitting in the bare metal, has moved from the bare metal to cloud. That's another transformation that is happening. Previously we used to, let's say we are using the data in any of the databases. Those databases are also become absolute. We are using big tables, big queries, and there's a lot of transformation that has happened even in the data. And cloud technology has definitely changed the way that we were looking at it. So previously, to create an infrastructure, it used to take months together. Now we don't. Like, if I need to upgrade, scale up, scale down, and depending on my usage of my data, I can actually scale up, scale down, and increase the capacity with cloud by adding extra clusters or reducing the clusters that I don't need. And I can actually repurpose my different environments, int and QA, and all those environments I can actually repurpose based on that. So there are a lot of transformation principles that were applied at a various step. And if you think about the digital transformation, this is not a one step process. This is a multi step process, and it continuously evolves as the organization matures. As we are trying to solve the problems from one situation to another, the way you look at the digital transformation is also changing. So that's why, we have to pay focus to four aspects. As I already said, people, you cannot accomplish any goal if you cannot focus on people. The second one is the processes. What is the current process? What we wanted to focus tomorrow is another thing, data and cloud. With that, we will go and talk about a little bit for the digital disruption, even though it is slightly, it looks slightly off topic from our current topic, but there has a lot of impact of digital disruption in the digital transformation. If you look at the screen, so I have multiple things that everybody is already aware of. World's largest taxi company, Uber, doesn't have the doesn't own any taxes, and accommodation provider, hotels, or some kind of accommodation. Airbnb doesn't have any of the real estate, and largest phone companies are Skype or WeChat or whatever it is. They don't need any extra equipment or infrastructure other than their maintenance of servers. And a lot of the world's largest retailer doesn't need any inventory. It is Alibaba. They don't need the way, if you look at the media content on Netflix, it doesn't produce any, it doesn't own any movie house, and so on and so forth. If you look into the most catchy thing here, largest app provider, Apple or Google, they don't create any of their apps, they actually host. Now if you look into that, previously we used to own the infrastructure, we used to own the process, we used to write the application. This has changed. So why digital disruption has anything to do with the topic that we were talking about? Because of the three things. One, optimization of the resources, and the second one is the focus on the digital security and data privacy. So even though there were a lot of things that were actually popping up in the process of digital transformation, we also need to focus on these things. Your organization is going into a certain manner, but there was a digital disruption that is happening that may interfere with your digital transformation that is happening. For example, your organization has set some goals, and you are going in a specific direction, and because of the a newer technology or newer way of looking at the things, let's say for example um, a any airline, they were only booking the tickets on one method. Now they have like multiple methods. Now they have to go back and they have to revisit how they can actually compete with the disrupting technology that is coming, and how can they optimize their resources and everything when it goes into the digital mode. So the biggest challenge is digital security. I insist on the digital security and data privacy to a greater extent in the digital transformation. The reason is there are a lot of cases and fraud that has happened and that continuously happens in the digital era. So identity theft becomes a most common thing, and as more and more data has been captured and it is being stored, then data privacy becomes an issue. As you capture the data, you are transforming the data and you are storing the data on the cloud. Then how are we insisting that there is the data that is there in the cloud is very secure? The reason I am talking about the cloud security here, let's say I have a Kubernetes cluster and I have the data there, and I am giving the permissions to a sector, like I'm giving the permissions on the data for a particular person. So whoever has access to that cluster may be able to see all the content that is stored there. Not necessarily that his access is restricted to a record that he is only access to see. So there are a lot of intricacies in data security and data privacy in the cloud era, and also when we go into the complete digitalization of that. So authenticity, authorization, data encryption, data decryption, and all those security aspects becomes much more critical. And every time you are working with a PII data, which is like personal information, whether it is healthcare, airline, or any financial sector, it becomes a FedRAMP security, especially with US data, and different countries may have different security aspects too. So you have to pay attention to the data security and privacy as you go. So with this concept, like let's go and talk about what makes the digital transformation a buzzword and what is actually it is comprises of. It comprises of four things. There are many different things, but for our discussion today, I took only four topics. One is artificial intelligence, and the next one is IoT, Internet of Things. We might be hearing this for a long time, and DevOps and blockchain. I will start with the DevOps first, and then we will go into the different aspects of digital transformation. Depending on the organization maturity, different components may become part of digital transformation. The first part we talked, the people, process, data, and cloud is common. But when you come into the digital transformation nuts and bolts, so what are the different technologies that can be actually adopted in this? So depending on if you are a healthcare, you may have a different technologies and tools that you will use, or for the topic of today's discussion, I picked four. So, DevOps model. The people who are actually more familiar with the traditional way of software development may have to shift the way they are doing their software development. Previously, you used to follow the waterfall method. Then all the requirements are done. Then you go into the design. Then you go into the development. Then testing. That process has changed because when we went into the agile method, that has actually changed. But after we have moved into the agile or scrum or kanban, whatever it is, but still there is a lag here. Let's say in a sprint, then you found, like, you have these stories to be developed, but you are waiting on SRE or a release manager to deploy. You are waiting on the tester to come back and test it after it's being deployed. So there is a different process. So in the DevOps model, we focus on agility. We focus on the cross functional team getting cross trained on technology aspects. And then I don't need an SRE to come back and deploy my code. I don't need somebody else to come and set up my environment. I don't need a architect to decide these things. So there will be an enterprise architect which will be who will be giving you the guidelines. There will be an application architect, but on a day-to-day aspects, like you are reducing the number of roles that are needed for the software development. It is not actually reducing the jobs, but actually you're enhancing the skills of the software professionals. So DevOps model is the latest buzzword in towards digital transformation. So let's say you are training your people. So you take the DevOps model. That means you take a software engineer, you train them on the release management, you train them in infrastructure management. Now it is cloud, so you train them in cloud technologies, and then the software tools that you actually use to develop the code has also changed. Previously, like, everything used to be on the server side scripting. For example, if I talk about web technologies, now it is like, even your simple browser is doing a lot of things. So the way that the languages are being developed and evolving has also have gone through a tremendous change. Previously, Java, now it is Golang, Google language, and a lot of other things have already come into the market. So training your team in DevOps model is the best thing. My sincere advice to the students is to, like, let's say if you want to be a Java developer, do not focus on front end, do not focus on back end, but become a full stack developer. Yeah, and also you have to understand how to deploy your code and how to debug your code and to do little more than that as well. So DevOps model is definitely a go for digital towards digital transformation. The next one is AI. So everybody knows AI is artificial intelligence, or everybody can talk about AI is like, making an intelligent system. So systems are becoming intelligent because we are able to identify the mundane or repeated processes. So when we have the repeated processes, we are trying to automate that. And then and there are two different types of things. There is you train the algorithms, you train the system based on your algorithms, and the system is also learning. So if engineering students are taking artificial intelligence course, AI course as part of your curriculum, or if you are talking about DA, which is data analysis and algorithms, please take these two courses very, very seriously and work with your professors on that, because these are the two things that actually going to change the way that we are looking at the things. And we will talk about some of the use cases. That's where you will understand a little more deeper. The next one is IoT. So this is, I would insist Internet of Things for ECE and CSC students. So previously, like, you have one machine and you actually work with that. Now we know everything is like interconnected and everything is networked, and then everything you can operate with one app on your mobile, on your smartphone. So why it is important? All your network topics that you learn in your ECE or CSC subjects, and all the OS that you learn, the principles of OS and the database concepts, you all combine together and you apply the network principles towards developing a IoT. So let's say I don't need to actually go to my garage. I can actually open and close my garage. I can open my microwave. I can actually set the timer on my coffee machine. I can actually, schedule the time when I need to run my laundry. I'm just talking about the day-to-day operations, and we will talk about RFID and other technologies as we discuss the case studies. So, important of IoT is beyond your day-to-day applications, and if you are looking at the normal applications or normal mundane tasks that you are doing, how you can actually connect the things. And each of the electronic equipment that you are talking about has a different kind of operating system. It has a different version. So the problem of connecting these smart systems becomes much more challenging when you get into the nuts and bolts of it. The next one is blockchain. The blockchain, it is still in the POC phase, except one or two Bitcoins and Ethereum. So it has not really revolutionized anything yet. But in future, there is a concept that it is going to take over. But I cannot say whether it is going to be like a quick or it is going to take its own time. We can talk about one of the case studies in blockchain as we go further. So some of the case studies here with respect to the aviation sector, I will talk about AI in the cockpit. So cockpit is, where the pilot sits, and, that's the pilot's space, driving space. I won't say driving, flying space. So in the cockpit, previously, there used to be two pilots, and they actually make the decisions based on the data that is available. Now, one of the pilot can be replaced with a robot. So that means, like, instead of having two pilots, you have one pilot, one in-person pilot. The other one is a robot. So what is the advantage of having it? So the way human processes the situation, and the faster the robo actually analyzes and responds, there is a tremendous difference. Like, human brain can compete and can win a situation with a supercomputer. But when it is an emotional thing, when it is a decision making skill, you need a lot of data and you need to act very quickly, because it's a question of every passenger's safety, and you need more instructions. So now that the airlines are actually considering replacing one human pilot with a robo, and also introducing AI in the cockpit. So how they can introduce the AI in the cockpit? What are the different situations? What are the, when you talk about aeroplane flying, at every second there are 10,000 and millions of data points are being created and captured and processed. So at that time of decision, like, based on the weather conditions, based on the different situations that the flight can encounter, they need to make certain decisions. So this is one of the popular use case that's coming up, and there were some experiments that are already done, and they have replaced one of the pilots in the cockpit, and that was successful. And going forward, you will see, a lot of implementations of AI in the cockpit, not just having a robo, but also the way they are calculating the predictability and unpredictability. Both are being challenged with several use cases, several algorithms of AI. The next one is AI in the baggage and claims processing. So let's talk about the journey. So I am a passenger. I check into domestic or international. I leave my baggage. I go to my boarding area, and I board. And when I get down on my flight, from my flight, I go to my destination, I don't see my baggage. So there are multiple things are happening here. Let's talk about the baggage process for a minute. So when I'm leaving my baggage, and there is a chip that is actually put, it could be RFID chip. So, and that RFID chip is being read through the sensors. And I was fortunate enough to implement RFID and baggage solutions along with the claims processing for one of the largest airlines in the world. So when we were leaving the baggage, so you have an RFID chip, and the RFID chip, as the bag travels in the mechanical belt, then it actually goes through several set points, and the bag tag is being read. But even though it is being read, and I get all the notifications on my smartphone, yes, your bag is in this way, and if it is a multi-leg thing, if there is some mistake that happens, you will not be able to get the baggage. So what happens is, when situation like this happens, you go to the area where you actually do a claim processing, or you have 1-800 number that you call and you report that your baggage is lost with the details. So let's talk about how this happens with the partner alliance. And this is like one of uh, the most time-saving and money-saving AI application in the aviation industry. So let's say I am flying from Atlanta to India. There is no direct flight. Let's say I'm taking two airlines. I'm going to one destination in one airline, and from there I'm changing my airline and going to the next one. So these two are partner airlines, and the mistake has happened in between. When a claim has to be processed, the original airline that you have actually paid fee or your ticket is responsible for your claim. So it is actually paying to resolve and not to lose the customer. But between these two airlines, there is a lot of process and documentation that's placed. So let's say Delta pays the claim immediately, but Air France will take 6 months to pay the claim. It is taking a lot of time. So to avoid the situation, what they are doing is they actually automated the whole process, and they actually as they automated the whole process, so the moment that is being claimed that their package is lost, the partner airlines have to use the AI algorithm that's being designed by the principal airlines, and they are saying the predictability, instead of going through the human intervention, the claim is automatically processed. So that's how the claims process has been expedited. Here I'm optimizing the resources, here I'm saving the time, and I'm automating the mundane process as well. So this is one AI application. The research studies show that 80% of the claims have been processed in less than 1 week, which used to be like 2 months, 3 months, and so the revenue is or the issue has been addressed, and the customer loyalty has been increased. The next one is a single view of the customer. So customer can come from multiple sources. It can be a loyalty customer. It can be he can be coming from Make My Trip, or he can be coming from several different sources. So it can be a corporate customer. He can be an individual customer. So depending on all these things, they are actually creating a single view of the customer, and the AI has been used in predicting, let's say, how AI helps it. So there are different journal entries of the customer. So based on certain aspects of the customer attributes, it could be the customer name, phone number, or address, or any of those AI information. You take it and you're creating all those things and combine together, and you're merging together, and you're creating a single view of the customer. This actually makes a lot more easier to handle a customer, to respond to the customer, and also to gain more loyalty. And AI in marketing, yes, if you browse something, and you will get, let's say I'm browsing destination to Spain, so it understands, and then it actually sells me the packages. That's a small aspect of it. There are much more detailed AI case studies with respect to that. And the most critical one is reduction of the errors in the airline security. Airline security is a much complicated topic. And as you are going through that, there are several different checkpoints that you go through. And there are several different aspects of your own data is being captured by the airline industry as well as the airport authorities. So as you're going through this, as you know, you have gone through this place and you're going to a different place, and as you're going through, there are some security errors are also happening. So for example, you're going with the pet or you're going alone, and you know the data is being captured. And I don't know if I can share very critical aspects that we see in the security. Some of the times, you know, when the security cameras doesn't capture you the data, or when your facial recognition is when your facial recognition data is actually captured. So behind the scenes, they can also run an algorithm and connect to the criminal database, and they can actually find whether you fall into that raised flag or not. There are several different aspects to that. So they are, because that we have the data, we are applying the AI principles to it. And here the data I'm talking about is like multiple things. The data that is coming in normal text form, the data coming from the biometrics, and the data that is coming from the visuals, the video capture. So video, picture, text, and others. So it's the whole big data. So on this, like, you know, you are having a big data principles, you have the data coming, and you have the algorithms. You are actually applying the algorithms on the data that's being captured, and you're analyzing to accomplish a case study or your business case. Um, there is a popular usage of biometrics. I wish I could give you the demo, but because this is getting recorded, I cannot give you the demo of that, but I can describe. As people are walking through, so as you're walking through the airline security, so you don't need to scan your barcode, or you don't need to give your ticket, because if you are an international traveler, your passport is already there when you're booking your ticket. As your picture is there, you stand in front of the camera, and your camera captures your picture. It actually compares with the picture that's there on your passport. And if these two are 80% or 90% match, and you know, of course, that threshold changes from one to other. Let's say if it is like matching, and the airline flight attendant will let you go into the boarding area. So here you're talking about two things. One, the data that is actually captured is in the text form, right? The passport, you are actually a picture image. And from that image, your picture has been extracted and the points have been identified. And when you are when you are standing in front of your camera, it actually takes your picture and it compares with what is there in the in the database, and then comparing it. This is another one. This is actually towards, I would say, digital transformation too, because previously it wasn't the case. This one of the case. And then coming to the AI implementation for the airlines. So think about, you won't be surprised, you shouldn't be surprised when you go to your next international flight, instead of seeing a physical flight attendants like 3 or 4 people at the gate, you may see like one robo or like one AI application, and another one may be a in-person flight attendant. So you ask a question not to the flight attendant, but a AI application designed robo, or like in the form of a human form. So you can actually talk to humanoid. I mean, it's not necessarily like a humanoid form. You can have like an AI application interaction. You ask the question, when is my flight coming? What time am I boarding? What is the safety? Whatever the questions that you have. So that AI application will be answering. And I was fortunate enough to work with Microsoft and the airline industry to design one of those things. So we were able to design and we were able to pilot before the COVID itself. So when you go next time, you may see that. So like this, everything is going to it's not just the fingerprints, and now it is also the voice enabled systems. And recently I have seen Etihad or some other airlines have completely redesigned their interaction. Previously you used to use the touch screen and you select the things. Now it is fully voice enabled, like what's your destination, what's your number. Because of the new norm, the innovation is kicking off every day. So your fingerprints once used to be the best, now is replaced with a voice. And your regular scanning of the paperwork now became a facial scanning. So a lot of things have actually taken place, and they continue to evolve as we go. The future of AI is always debatable from two different aspects of it. One aspect is like, do we really continue to have AI, and what happens to the human forms, or the professionals? So humans are becoming more predictable, and machines are intelligent. That's how I conclude it. Because whatever the human form that we are actually talking, and we understood what are the decision trees, what's the deterministic algorithms we need to go, and what is the probabilistic algorithms that we have to design. And we understand the business problem, and we go in a methodical way, and we try to code those things, and that becomes uh, a future form of AI. And you will see more humanoids, you will see more intelligent applications. And as the system learns, there is also a predictability of the system. There's a trained algorithms and untrained behavior of the systems. So now humans will be spending their time in understanding how the system is learning the things without being coded. That's where some of our energies will go into, because the machines are becoming more intelligent, and machine can really understand how a human thinks, because it is learning as it goes every day. Any questions?
First, speak the audience that if you have any question.
Yeah, there was a question that every coin has two face. AI and RFID both has most risk of misuse. Everything has a risk in the world. And if you say, like, your Facebook, for example, although it looks very cool, but it does have a lot of risk, because your identity, we don't know how the organizations, app people, and everybody is capturing the data and selling the data. So is with AI and RFID. So we have to strike a right balance between what is important versus how we can actually use it in a right manner. So RFID definitely is, it is a risk, but if you look into the benefits versus the risk, RFID is the go technology. And to share some of the use cases, I was instrumental in deploying RFID across the nation for 826 stores of Macy's and Bloomingdale's in US in 2012 and 2013. And we have deployed everything, including the servers and site servers and enterprise servers. And we were also in the process of migrating that to a cloud. That's a different story. And then RFID for the baggage claim, yes, you cannot knock down the benefits, but of course, when you put any RFID, there are certain challenges with the sensors and reading. That's another thing. There's another question is how to build a career in AI. To build a career in AI, that's a very good question. Redmi. Um, so AI, you can build a career, but you cannot build a career without understanding the basic principles. The three things four things that you need to understand to build a AI career. One, you must be really good in at least one operating system. Understand the one operating system, one programming language, one database is must. You cannot knock out that. You have to be really professional to become any good developer. And the next one is understanding the algorithms from the business case perspective and technical case perspective. So you cannot, you cannot study AI and you cannot become altogether a AI professional. You have to go through that process. And if AI is your career path that you plan to do, then you definitely need to work on your basics, operating system. You cannot knock down because AI can be very versatile, and you have to narrow down your options. You have to come to a specialization area, but specialization cannot come without having a very basics. So you have to start always with the basics. How AI in built-in camera phone works. Well, AI in built-in camera, that's a good question. That takes another 20 minutes to explain that. If you are smart, you will be able to figure that out. I guess you can easily figure that out. Anything. Uh, and any technical questions? Or you can work with your professors, or you can take that as your academic research.
Madam, there are a few
Yes.
questions.
Yes,
Uh,
please.
I will just read out. If you could please spare some more time for answering this, it would be very
Yes,
good.
sir. Sure.
Uh, can you please tell us, can biometric captures all data related with human being?
So,
Can
can you
bio
repeat the
Yeah,
question?
Madam, I will repeat. Can biometric captures all data related with human being?
For the most part, yes, because I don't want, I mean, again, it depends the definition that you have in mind for biometrics. Let's say object is different from the biometrics. So if I am talking about the biometrics in a general industry sense, it is voice, iris, fingerprints, and facial recognition. These four are actually called as industry norms, the biometrics. And often people get confused with image scanning with biometrics. Biometrics are these four major components. And generally, when you say capturing the biometrics, usually you will refer to the human beings in normal sense. But here is the catch, right? So now, you have the pets, right? So pet has a face, pet has a paw, pet has things. The reason I brought this one, because we did a POC in one of the airlines where we actually, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
madam.
So there was a POC, a proof of concept that we were working. When you're traveling, a passenger is not always a human being. It could be a pet. So we did biometric identification of a pet, like pet picture, pet paw, or something like that, the unique feature of the pet. And then we try to put them in the cargo. So the cargo is like where you transport pets and materials. So the pet cargo is one of the most sensitive in US, because you put the pet in a cargo, it goes to the destination, but it can be missed, and you cannot actually, it cannot tell, and there are a lot of things that happens, and it becomes extremely sensitive if a pet is lost in US. So they were trying to introduce pet and biometrics together, so that you can actually define the right cage and identify whether that's the right pet. Because if the collar, the ID, whatever that is put, if that's lost, then how do you identify the pet? That was another use case. The third one that they did is when you lift the materials, right, in the cargo. So you have a big material, and by using the 3D cameras, we were actually capturing, let's say, this is the material that I wanted to, capture and ship it. Then I have the cameras on top of this, and I am actually capturing the image of this one in a 3D method. And I say, what is the length, width, and all those things. That's actually not a biometric, but this is like a 3D measurements of that. But there were some use cases that we were trying to use it. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
The
madam.
three aspects of
Madam,
it.
there is another question. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
would you suggest artificial intelligence for a country like India, where millions of youth are underemployed or unemployed? Madam,
Two
should I?
aspects, right? Yeah. So that's a that's a multi-dimensional question that you have asked.
Mm,
One is the technology aspect. Two is the people skill aspect. Three is the national problem of unemployment. So let's talk about the three. And I'm not an expert to talk about unemployment. I can talk only from the technology perspective because me being the technologist. So technology AI for India, definitely a big yes. Millions of records are coming, but before we go for that, you have to go through the digital transformation of digitalizing the records. Even today, if I go to a mandal office or any registration area, so the lands are not the land records or any of the records are not digitalized. So you digitalize those records. I'm just giving an example. A lot of use cases, like plenty, hundreds and thousands of use cases are there towards your towards first digitalization, and then you can apply the principles of AI. You cannot apply the principles of AI without the base systems. So yes, if that is one thing, the short answer is yes, AI is most suitable for India, regardless of the industry. For example, you are talking about academics. You are conducting your classes online, but how are you conducting your tests? So online. So how are you predicting that this person is legitimate? How are you calculating that this person is not cheating? How are you predicting the performance of the student down the next semester before he even takes up? Plenty of use cases in AI. Definitely yes.
mm. Madam, there.
The second, uh, one second. The second one you talked about is students. Students are definitely a bigger problem in the country. Lot of young students are there, but they are not focused about their careers. They are not learning the technology from the utility perspective. If I am talking about operating system, or if I am talking about it, how many of us will go back and can define a kernel? How many of us can actually understand the principles of kernel, or understanding the network principles, or define an algorithm except doing bubble sort and heel sort and all those things? So we are not, if you look into the sorting algorithm or search algorithms, the basic principles are same, but that were being used in Google Maps. How many of us were able to complete the connect the dots of this? So if we are learning the subject for sake of university marks, and if we are not able to understand the principles, then yes, the youth will be unemployed for a longer period of time. So it is that awakening moment for the youth to get back to their basics, learn the principles from the application perspective. And the industry has become a more like, you are making the students to go for the service sector, but there are plenty of opportunities for the students to become an employers and become an entrepreneurs. If this seed of thought was not sowed into the minds of young, they will be unemployed for longer periods. Sorry, my answer was long, but that was needed for the day. Yes, please. Next question.
Madam, the next question is, just as in the case of AI in cockpit, how can AI
Mhm.
be incorporated nicely in teaching profession, especially in higher education?
That's a great question. And some of the schools have already started AI as part of that. And as a student of MIT in US, they have actually used AI in my learning curriculum as well. When I was doing my certifications in blockchain, they have used AI. So there was a question, and as you are writing your answers, as you are writing your project cases and all, there was an algorithm that actually reads and then predicts what could be the outcome. That's one. Let's say you are in a classroom, you are giving your regular lecture, but students need much more than that. So there is an extension to your lecture, but your academic curriculum restricts you to talk about only that. You can have a robo, you can have a system which is actually it's a like chatbot, you can have that. And a voice enabled system can be your assistant in your class. And when the students are asking the question, if you don't know it, the assistant teacher can talk about it. I don't remember the school name, but in one of the school in Bangalore has already used this system, and it is working very well. And the second one, you can actually do a sentiment analysis. You can do a predictability of the student performance. You can actually use your AI depending on the student, the way they are answering, how the games are like, it goes more difficult and difficult. So you can apply several principles of AI in everyday tasks. Like, you can put it in your classroom, you can put it in your assessment, you can actually build in your predictability, well, multiple things. But you can use deterministic, and you can also use predictability, probability algorithms, both.
Mm. Madam, the next question is, can you hear me, madam?
Yes,
Mm.
yes.
Is it possible to get information from non-living beings like RCC walls, mirrors, etc.? Is there any research about it?
RCC mirrors.
RCC walls, mirrors, etc.
I am not a domain expert to comment. You
Okay,
ask me
madam.
anything in AI, you can ask me from aviation sector,
Mm.
retail. I would be the best. I don't want to misguide the person. I can guess, but I don't want to talk about the things which I'm not very authorized to talk.
Okay. Mm. So, madam, this may be the last question. Is it compulsory to learn AI before going to learn IoT?
Well, there are two different things. First of all, what anybody needs to learn is the basics. Once you're good with basics, you apply the basics to the smart systems. Like any system can become a smart system, and these two are like independent things. Let's say without the basic principles of AI, you can actually have a very simple. AI is not like a totally different concept. It actually evolves as you are trying to make the system more intelligent. AI is the in, integrate part of the systems that we are building. That's one. And IoT is a concept. There are two different concepts. IoT is like I have the hardware, I have the software. I am connecting the hardware to the software, and I'm actually trying to connect the systems through a mobile app. It could be anything. So, for example, Thailand government is connecting all the agriculture equipment with IoT principles, and then they are actually planning to use AI and all. And I had a presentation on that as well. So, these are the different principles. I cannot say like, whether one is needed. They actually go parallel depending on what business case you are trying to solve.
Okay, then, madam. Mhm. Thank you very much for your informative session, madam. And I want to thank you and all the participants for making this webinar successful. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.